Okay, so what about navigation? Navigating with the mouse. So there's a couple things about navigation that you should be aware of. Usually when you open up 3D Studio Max, it looks something like this. This is what we call a 4 viewport configuration. All right, so you're typically left with a let me go over these one by one. You have a front view, okay? You have a top view, you have a left view, and you have a perspective view. This is typically when you open up 3D Studio Max, you know, minus the sphere or whatever, you know, that's what it looks like. Whoops, forgot I had that back there. Okay, so what you want to do is how you navigate. How you navigate. The first thing I like to do is I don't like to work in 4 viewports. When you work in more than one viewport, your mind is split and your focus is split. So the first thing that I do is get rid of it. I usually work in the front mode almost exclusively, okay? So what you can do is you can come over here to this button in the very bottom right-hand corner. It's Maximize Viewport Toggle, all right? And now all of a sudden you're in a maximized view and your mind is not split. You're focused on one thing. All right, so now to pan, to move the camera. Now I'm not moving the object. This is moving the object. Now how do you know when you're moving the object or you're moving the camera? Easy. There's this grid over here. This grid is actually really helpful. If you press your middle mouse button, okay, and start moving it, not wheeling it. Now if you wheel, it's going to zoom in and out, okay? But if you press it and move the mouse, you're now moving the camera. This is what we call the orthographic front camera because I'm in this orthographic front mode here. Now if I'm moving the object, as you can see, the grid does not move. The grid does not move. So that's the difference between the two. I'm actually moving this in XY space, XY, and now if I move it, if I rotate the camera, how did I do that? I'm in the front view. I held the Alt button down on the keyboard and I clicked and rotated. Now I'm in 3D. Here, I'm working on X and Y. I'm in a 2D mode. But the moment I hold Alt and rotate the camera, now I have X, Y, and Z available to me. So that's pretty much navigation for you. So middle mouse button to pan and move your mouse. Wheel, zoom in and zoom out. You can also hold Alt and rotate around. Okay. Now the next thing that I would like to add, of course the viewport toggle. Okay. So let's understand some things about the camera. This is all still part of navigation. So I'm going to go to the create panel real quick. I created some boxes. I'm also going to make sure that these have some depth to them. Okay, so let's go ahead and just place these over here. So right now I'm actually using the move tool. So now you can see that these 3 objects are locked in XYZ space. And I'm just moving my camera to get focused. You can press F on the keyboard. So if you have something selected, if you press F, it will zoom to that area. Okay, if you have nothing selected and you press F, F is front viewport. I'm sorry, Z is what I was looking for. If you select something and you press Z, the camera will center on that object. Center on that object. F is for front view. Okay, sorry about that. So let's go ahead and extrude this to make this a little box. Okay, now we are in orthographic angle perspective. It's not a perspective, it's actually an orthographic camera. It appears to be perspective because we have 3 distinct axes that we can see. But the reality is, if I may, if I come over here and I go to the front viewport, I come over to the front viewport here. I'm in the front in both of these cameras. Now, this is, if I rotate this camera, and I rotate this camera, okay, what it's telling me is that I'm in 2 orthographic cameras. However, if I hit P on the keyboard, now I'm in perspective. And how do you know the difference? Because over here in this camera, I've got 3 parallel lines moving up and down on both of my boxes. This, you don't have parallel lines. You can tell because there's a vanishing point that's been introduced. I have 1, 2, 3 lines, and if I just keep following them down, eventually they'll come close to almost converge. Unless I actually like build a pyramid, it's not going to converge. But let's make it longer so you guys can see the difference. So I'm just going to go to the bottom of the box. Hey, what's up, follower? So if I pull it down, you can see exactly what's happening. I've got parallel lines happening here in orthographic mode, and I've got perspective lines happening here. Now, why does that happen is because the programming, the math behind this camera is designed as a type of a fisheye lens. It's supposed to operate almost exactly like, and it does operate exactly like a regular camera does, digital camera or analog camera, however. So that's the difference between navigating the camera. So, by the way, these are viewports. Remember, if I had in the beginning, I had these 4 viewports. I had made a statement, just a recap on what was happening. Okay, we have a front view. Whoops, let's go front. Front view, top view, left view, or side view. Okay, this is also known as a side view camera. And then this over here is your perspective view. I usually never work in perspective. The only time I ever work in perspective is actually if I drop an actual camera in, which will be a lesson for another time. Okay, so if I hit Z, it centers everything up, but I only want to work in the one view. So I'm going to hit this maximize viewport toggle over here, work in one view. Now, sometimes, as I had said, if I'm going to work in an additional view, whoa, sorry for all of that. You can play with this. You know, that's my comfort level, is I only want to play with one camera. Sometimes I'll play with 2. And I'll just, you know, right click, or you can right click on this little gizmo. Now, where am I at? I'm hovering my mouse over these converging lines. Okay, right click and hit reset layout. And everything goes back to 4 viewports. I can click and drag it, and I can make these 4 windows whatever size I want to. Right click and reset. But you know, if push comes to shove, if I'm really working, and normally what I'll do is I'll create a camera. I'll set the camera up over here, and I'll work in the front viewport. That's the way that I work. And yes, I know that these guys are still up here, but it's not taking a whole lot of real estate. I mean, we're talking about 1/4 of an inch on my monitor. It's not bothering me. If you need to set it up for a different panel layout, go ahead. That might be in another video, but honestly, it's not important. My videos are geared towards efficiency, not necessarily towards comfort. Okay. So what we can do is right click on the reset layout for later, go to the front viewport, maximize view, and now all of a sudden I'm in three axes by holding the Alt button, pressing the middle mouse button, and I can do like this. I can click and move my mouse, or middle click and move my mouse, and I can get panning. I can also zoom in and out. I can also hit Z on the keyboard, and it tries to center everything up to the best of its ability. Okay. Also, perspective camera. P for perspective. Okay. So if I hit, if I'm in perspective, okay, and I hit Z, this is like the closest it's going to get. Now, if I zoom in, see that? See how that geometry is starting to split up? That's because the default camera in perspective mode is trying to enter into this object, and this is what we call camera clipping. Okay, so you got to watch that. It will not do that in the user view. So if you hit U on your keyboard and you try to zoom in, that you can get in like super ultra tight on that vertex, and you won't clip. That's the #1 reason why I don't use perspective mode. Okay, so hope that helps.